Hey everyone, Scott Cunningham, aka Scott's Business. Today we're going to be talking about what most people aren't seeing about Bitcoin. And I want to preface this by saying that I am not a financial advisor. I'm not some sort of expert. I am not even really going to be giving you my opinion. I am only going to be sharing with you the facts of exactly what is happening and let you make your own conclusions. But I have a feeling, and it is my opinion, that if you're looking at Bitcoin very negatively right now, you might think a little differently when you're done watching this. So let's dive right in. The biggest and most important thing being that the Bitcoin halving is coming next May. Well, this upcoming May of 2020, generally. So we can't say the exact date because it's estimated based on the amount of miners that are mining, but I will leave a link in the description where you can see a countdown for the projected estimation. Currently, it says May 14th. That could change. It's not opinionated. It's not an opinion that it's May 14th. It's based on the mining projections and the amount of that are being mined every single day. Again, that could change, but it's not going to have a drastic impact on the day. It could be May 13th, it could be May 16th, maybe some crazy amount of miners stop mining, and it doesn't happen till June. But we have a very good idea of when this is going to happen, and I'll share that link with you guys so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about. One of the really important things is for the next halving, the inflation rate for Bitcoin will reduce from 3.8% to about 1.8%. And the US has an inflation rate of 1.7, and it is among some of the wealthiest countries in the world. The top 5 countries with the highest GDP are US, China, Japan, Germany, and the UK. And their respective inflation rates are 1.7, 2.8, 0.3, 1.4, and 1.7. So comparing that to a lot of the other inflation rates of countries that aren't doing so well, you can see there's definitely a correlation between lower interest and high-performing GDP. And I'm not saying it's because you have low interest, you have high GDP. It's more so when you have high GDP, if you have low interest with that, it's going to help. And China is the only one that kind of has a bit of a higher inflation rate comparatively to the other ones, with Japan being only 0.3, which is extremely low. The point being that Bitcoin is going to drop from 3.8, which is way higher than these, to around the same, right? 1.8 is very, very close to 1.7. And in the next halving, it's going to be less than almost all of them except for Japan. And well, essentially what this means is that it is going to be in line with some of the wealthiest countries' inflation rates. And not only that, they don't have supply caps, meaning they're going to infinitely inflate until they trend down to zero, because all sovereign currencies trend towards zero because of inflation. Bitcoin is a commodity like gold, thus there is a supply limit of 21 million, meaning that once it hits that, there will never be any more Bitcoin than 21 million. So even though it might have an inflation rate of 1.8 or 1.7 or 3.8, where whatever it happens to be at the time, it still should technically have more value. And that's why we see all sovereign currencies trending to zero, whereas a lot of cryptocurrencies trend upwards. And many people will say, well, they're volatile, it's hype, it's a bubble, da 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 da. When you look into the halvings and the previous halvings, you'll actually realize that all of the previous hype cycles of Bitcoin were based around Bitcoin halvings. And you might say maybe it's a coincidence, but any serious, and I'm not saying you're not serious, a serious investor, but any investor who's really, really looked into Bitcoin as a technology, they've looked at the blockchain, they've looked at how it all works, they understand that the price generally should, based on supply and demand, go up every halving. Naturally, investors will start to invest leading up to the halving, and they'll buy a bunch right around it to spur the hype, and then everyone else will jump in because they don't know why, but all the news starts churning a bunch of stories, everyone's talking about it, everyone's buying it. The people who knew the halving was coming were already prepared for this. Everyone else just thinks, oh my god, it's another hype, it's another bubble, like get in before it's too late. And anyways, so previous increases after halvings have been just ridiculous. The very first halving saw an increase from the time of its halving to its next all-time high, which was around 300 days or so. It was 8,000% increase. The second halving, it saw a 3,000% increase. I'm hoping this is not a prediction by any means. I'm hoping that in the next halving, we'll see maybe a 1,000% increase in line with the percentage changes of the previous halvings. And mind you, that's complete speculation. That I would hope it would be 1,000. It's not like I'm saying it would or it should, but that is my hope, because that would be really ideal. The point is, though, a lot of miners will actually stop selling leading up to the halving, and then once the halving halves, they'll start selling at a higher rate because they're making significantly less. So what a halving is when the Bitcoin rewards for mining a block for miners goes from, well, it halves. So currently it's 12.5, it'll go to 6.25. They're going to be getting half as much. So they want to take advantage of, losing all of the potential rewards that they would be getting otherwise by holding on to it, and then making sure collectively that the price goes up, because they still need to cover their electricity fees and everything that they have going on for it to still be profitable. And generally you see miners with like less capacity, less capability, they kind of fall off and get replaced by bigger companies and people with like mining farms, etc. So when we talk about just supply and demand, which I mentioned earlier, Bitcoin has a limited supply. It's like gold. So naturally, when the production of this halves, based on supply and demand, it should go up. The demand should go up because the supply is being limited by the production. Mind you, we are already over or right around 18 million. I'm not going to bother to check, but we're right around 18 million, I think. I know we're over 17 million, and the max is going to be 21 million. So it's not like we're super limited with supply. Like, it's not like we're lacking it. We're already, there's only 3 million or so more to be mined anyways. But typically, when that happens, the difficulty goes up. Typically, there is a price increase because of that as well. I've already made 2 videos previously on the halvings, but people are really afraid because Bitcoin has been going down lately, right? So I think it's really important to make this distinction of why typically we see these massive hype cycles where it just really shoots up and people don't necessarily know why. Though it could be speculation, it could be luck, it could be hype, it could be a bubble. The main things that we actually can point to are something like the halving. A lot of people say, well, it's all speculatory, it's not really backed by anything. Well, it is a commodity, and it is backed by the electricity used to create it and the fiat currency used to acquire it. And again, supply and demand. I made a video not long ago talking about how wealth is really based on, or rather currency is really based on faith and attention. If you have faith in it, or if people are giving it the attention, like that it is legitimate, it is value, if people are just using it to any degree, it has value. And the average person has no idea about this. I said this earlier. The average person has no idea about Bitcoin halvings. So when they see Bitcoin going up, they just think there's another hype cycle. They don't actually know why. But then they get in because, it's going up and they hope that they can get some money out of it too. But typically when you're joining in late, you're going to be losing money because the people like myself and other people who know about the halving, we've already invested, and now we're just waiting for those people to come in and, unfortunately, more or less taking their money because they're bringing the price way up, and then we sell. And then they don't know when to sell, or maybe they do and they do make money. And then typically it crashes after, but it ends up at a higher high than its previous low, or a higher low than its previous low. And the cycle repeats. But, we don't know exactly what's going to happen. The only thing that we can point, or one of the only things that we can point to, is we do know that with previous halvings, the prices have skyrocketed. And so many people will always say, yeah, but you don't really know that it's going to have, like, what if it just doesn't? Or like, it could just be your opinion that it's going to. It's like, no, it's built into the technology. It's not a speculation that it might have. It will have at a certain amount of blocks mined. It will happen. And no one is going to stop it unless every miner stops mining, which would equally be detrimental, and that's not going to happen. That would be like a global blackout. What does this mean for the rest of the market? Well, what this means for the rest of the market is that every other somewhat good, like any project that has a good coin or token, typically will also see a spike if Bitcoin spikes. And the reason is because when Bitcoin is used, generally Bitcoin, ETH, Binance, there's different coins, but generally a very small amount that are used as trading pairs with other coins. Bitcoin is one of the main trading pairs. So say Bitcoin it does go up 1,000%, right? So say it's worth now 100 times more than some altcoin that you wanted to buy before, but you weren't buying. But you have Bitcoin, and you don't know when Bitcoin is going to crash, but you've got this Bitcoin, and you see all of these altcoins that are just very, very low value. So you're sitting there wondering, wouldn't it make sense that I buy these altcoins because they're extremely inexpensive, but they're still worth the same, just because Bitcoin is worth way more and I have Bitcoin? Well, you would be thinking the same thing as basically anyone who has Bitcoin, because what usually happens is people take advantage of this and they buy a ton of altcoins. Now it shifts, and Bitcoin generally raises the tides for all boats. Also, on the other side, Bitcoin going down typically brings down everything else because, again, it's affecting the trading pairs. So what happens is it goes way up, and then people take advantage of this and they buy all the other coins, and then they all go way up as well. And then everyone holding any of decent coins, because, assuming you've got like some awful shit coins, you're probably not going to benefit very much. But as long as you have decent coins and people are taking their Bitcoin and investing in those as well, then you're going to see an increase in all those coins as well. And again, that is speculation. I will say that. I will make the point of saying that whether or not other coins will go up is completely speculation, but generally that's what typically happens when Bitcoin is way up. And we all just know that from history, that whenever Bitcoin takes a hit, most coins take a hit. When Bitcoin gets huge gains, most coins go up as well. The bottom line: I know many people get upset when people talk about Bitcoin predictions. I've been threatened just for mentioning that Bitcoin will have. They're built into the technology itself. It's not like some opinion I have or some speculation. It is what will happen. And I'm not making a prediction based on the fact that it's halved in the past. It will have again. The prediction I'm not making the prediction, but the speculation is whether or not the price will go up. And if you have any faith in general economics and supply and demand, then you would understand that it really should. It should. I'm not saying it will, but it should. And regardless of the conclusions that you draw from this, I'll let you know that I am waiting for May to basically sell off the majority of my stuff. Not at May, not on the 15th. Everything's not just going to explode. For the previous halvings, there was like 300 days for the first one to the all-time high, and the second one it was like 500 days to the all-time high. So we could see like a full year after the halving before things really vamp up. But there should be somewhat of a notable increase in May or leading up to May, and it should continue to increase. It should. We're just going based off of what has happened and how the halvings do this every time. And the halvings will 100% happen. Whatever happens as a result of the halvings, we don't know. All we know is what's happened before. And it's not just like, oh, look at the past. It's like, well, the past, the future, anytime, supply and demand is a relevant variable, because that's just basic economics. So again, it's self-evident when you look into the technology and how it's set up and how the price previously skyrocketed that it isn't just random or hype based. And it was because of the halvings. And whether or not you believe that or not, we can wait to see in May and a year, maybe 2 years after May. So again, it's not speculation. Don't just go buy Bitcoin because you saw this. Don't say that I told you to buy Bitcoin. I am not recommending you do anything. I'm only giving you the information, and you can make your own conclusions. Because, everyone's saying Bitcoin must be bullish again. And what generally happens is everyone really wants it to be. So then when all of the investors who understand the halvings invest, all of the media outlets catch on, they start turning a bunch of stories, and everyone jumps in at this point. And, I already said this, but you'll see searches for Bitcoin will skyrocket, articles will skyrocket, the amount of articles being written. And leading up to the halving, I'm going to be very closely monitoring the amount of searches for Bitcoin, the amount of articles being put out, and maybe I'll make a video or a few videos going like leading up to then, just kind of following along that hype cycle, because the hype cycle, while it does affect the price, is more or less a result of the informed investors understanding what's happening with the actual technology and making informed decisions. And everyone else is playing catch up because they don't actually know why. And I think that's a huge... It's very important to understand this, because so many people are like, yeah, well, it's all speculative. No one knows when it's going to go up or down. It's like, well, we can look at halvings and have... That's like the most concrete thing, in my opinion, that we can look at. It's a commodity. The halving is going to happen. The supply is going to be... the supply isn't going to change per se, but the inflation for the supply and the production is going to change, and it's going to be limited by a lot. And we'll see. I'm going to have a keen eye watching out for this. Let me know what you guys think. Again, I am not suggesting you buy Bitcoin. Make your own conclusions. Let me know what you think below. Is there any other concrete things that you think that we can point to? Or do you think that halvings are the most concrete thing that we can base our investing strategies off of? Or do you think the halvings are just a bunch of hocus pocus? Maybe not that they're not real, but that they don't really affect the price as much as people might think that they do. Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to comment hashtag #1ham to let me know that you watched to the very end. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'm Scott Cunningham, aka Scottsy Business, signing off. Cheers.